Hit record and we'll wait for it to get going, and I'll just start when it is. Davida Ginter is the author of Burning Out Won't Get You There and co-founder and CEO of Enkindle Global, an organization that's dedicated to supporting individuals and organizations in preventing burnout. She's a nonviolent communication trainer and participatory leadership facilitator. She currently resides in Israel and works globally, spreading out the vision of preventing burnout and cultivating personal and social well-being. Davida, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Chris.
No
Happy to be
problem.
here.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about preventing burnout from you today and being able to share this with my audience. So I know you wrote Burning Out Won't Get You There, and it just released this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually in September, just a
Awesome.
couple of months ago, yeah.
That's awesome. And that can be found on Amazon, and I'll make sure to have that link in the description for people to be able to check it out and get a copy of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And so the first line of the description of the book it says busyness, judgment, resistance to change, fear of admitting failure. Do change makers have to suffer to reduce world suffering? Or is there a way to avoid burnout? And I think that's just kind of encompassing of so much and great questions to start with. So kind of what got you started being interested in the topic of burnout?
Yeah, what happened is actually a day-to-day regular conversation with a colleague of mine. It was 3 years ago. We both work in the field of social and ecological sustainability. So we're both sustainability practitioners.
Okay.
And we were talking about people from our field, some of our colleagues, that while they take care of basically everyone else, the planet, the environment, other people, entire communities, they forget to take care of themselves. So we find it kind of an irony that people who work towards sustainability neglect to sustain themselves. So we chatted a bit about it, and we concluded with the sentence that you read from the book. We don't have to suffer in order to reduce world suffering. And I thought this is a great title for an article. I'll do some research. I post an article on this topic of suffering while you're mobilizing social change. But what happened is that I found so many stories out there, and I realized how big this topic really is. I gave a word to it, which is obviously burnout. I wasn't familiar with the term until then. And this is how it grew to be the book project, and then the organization Enkindle that is dedicated to supporting others in preventing burnout.
Well, that's awesome. It's always cool to see the backstory of how people come up with the ideas that they put forward and put out there. So that's really neat to see all the research you've done on that. So with your research, what did you kind of find was the biggest or most prevalent causes of burnout among entrepreneurs or small business owners?
Yeah, good question. Because you see, what's interesting is that there are so many different stories. Obviously, we're humans, individuals, so stories are very personal. But at the same time, there are similarities. So many of the causes sound the same. Yeah, so there's a big list here about what causes burnout, especially amongst change makers, leaders, and entrepreneurs. But if I have to choose the most common ones, I would say that the first one is the fear to connect and seek for help and support and advice. It's almost the fear to admit a failure or a struggle or a challenge. For entrepreneurs specifically, because you mentioned entrepreneurs, it's that fear to appear weak, either in front of the clients, customers, or the investors. While we know actually that if we are if we open up and openly share about our struggles and setbacks, we will get the support. But for some reason, we tend to hide it. We tend to hide this feeling of something is wrong now and really need the support and help. So this is one of the most common causes to
Absolutely.
burnout. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
And,
that goes right with so pencil leadership. The first trait is being able to be humble enough, kind of put our pride on the shelf to reach out for help from people who have had the experience or has been through things already. So that ties right into it. And I think that's a huge point.
exactly. And it brings up the question, why is it connected to pride?
Mm,
I mean, are we not successful if we are now coming up and say, hey, we need help? I mean,
yeah,
who defined what is success? Does
exactly.
leadership has to be mistakes proof? I don't think so. This is not what I realized from people who share their stories with me. And so this is the strongest thing that came up when we were afraid to share what's going on with us, right? We hit the
Yep.
wall of burnout.
Mm,
And I would say that the second one is definitely connected to the question of how to put self boundaries. Something around when to say yes and when to say
mm,
no and when to say maybe, but to put those boundaries on different things. It could be related to work, when to collaborate and when to take on more projects or take on more hours, maybe.
mm-hmm.
But it's also about these, the personal sphere, the personal space, and how to differentiate between work and personal life. Because what happens is that change makers and entrepreneurs and founders, they are so committed to the cause of work. And this is great, right?
Yeah.
We're passionate, right? We're pursuing something really important. And this is great on one hand. And on the other hand, we are so committed and so passionate that we forget to put those boundaries and take care of ourselves and take necessary breaks and know when to just, do something that is nourishing for ourselves that might not be related to work now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one that I found with myself, just trying to take on so much, thinking that I'm being able to help other people by saying yes over and over, when in reality, I was stretching myself so thin that I wasn't being able to give 100% to those tasks, to those individuals. And so being able to take a step back and say, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that, or not right now, because I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself, fill myself up so I can then give 100% to that task at hand, for sure.
Yeah, and you make a great point here, because we want to help,
Hmm.
right? We want to do something important and meaningful, which is, again, this is wonderful, this is admirable. But when we do that to an extent that we are not able to recharge ourselves, then we are no longer effective, helpful,
Hmm.
productive.
Right.
And now take all of that and add another layer of blame and shame and
Mm.
self-judgment. So imagine someone like an entrepreneur or leader already is stressed out because of different things, right? It could be work, it could be something is going wrong now, but
Mm.
is now also feel this shame that he's going through something um, so challenging. And that adds up and strengthen this feeling of being anxious, and then of course comes the burnout, so that
Absolutely.
there's another depth to this problem.
Yeah, and we only have so many hours, so we have to really weigh what are the most important tasks or um, things that we need to accomplish. Otherwise, um, again, we're just going to get so drawn down and beat down that we're not going to have enough left to do the most important things. And so, prioritizing what's really truly important and what's going to make the biggest difference, being able to do that, I think, is a good start. Um, is there
Yeah.
any ways from your research that you've seen help people avoid burnout, prioritization, or anything like that? Or
Well, yeah, so many. And that was one of the questions that I posed to basically everyone that I've spoken with to write this book, because I held formal interviews, but also many, many, many informal conversations. And I gained, just a ton of advice. Really, people generously shared with me. So I gave everything in the book, all those practices and approaches. But the first advice I want to give here now, which is really important, is that there's no one recipe. There isn't a formula, there isn't one advice that you can follow. Actually, when people think that they can follow other people's advice without it being suitable for them, it's even more stressful. Right? Let's say that
Right.
I'm seeing
Yeah.
now I'm seeing everyone around me now meditating, right? It's really trendy now. Let's go to meditation. So this is great. This is serving them. I've tried it, not working for me. I can't meditate. That's okay. I find my thing in other practices. But if I think I have to meditate to be a good leader, I will be stressed out. Why is it not working for me?
Right.
So the first advice is don't follow blindly after advice that does not serve you well.
Yeah. And don't force it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So test, try, explore, absolutely, but check if that serves you well and help you feel in a good place, in a happy place almost. But if I still want to give some advice and practices, right, to give some ideas. So maybe we'll start with what we mentioned before, right? If the problem is that we are afraid to reach out for help and support, one of the important practices is to learn how to reach out for this support and mentorship, and cultivate a net of support. It could be from your colleagues, but also it could be friends that are not related to work. It could be reaching out to a mentor. And that was surprising for me to find out. I interviewed several mentors, and some of them said, people are shy away from asking us to mentor them, but we want to feel valuable. Yeah. We want to help others. So right on, entrepreneurs, go and find a mentor, someone who can support you. So connect, find your nets of support. This is a great practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it goes to so many places. For example, we talked about boundaries. So a practice could be to learn how to let go and what to let go of. So you don't have to keep everything on your agenda if it's too much to take. And like you said, you need to learn to prioritize, to realign your life and values.
Yeah, absolutely. So personally, do you have a couple ways that you deal with maybe the stress that could cause burnout? I know you said meditation wasn't one, so.
Yeah, you caught me on that one. Yeah, I was asked that question just the other day, so I can easily come up with the answer because I reflected to myself. And I know now that for me, 3 main practices really, really help to maintain my well-being on a daily basis.
Yeah.
One would be to write. I'm a writer, but not only of this book. I like writing, whatever it is, text, articles, journaling, whatever it is, to kind of, pour my thoughts on the page, and I feel like myself again when I write. So this would be one practice. Another one is to be in the outdoors. I like hiking. I like being in nature, not necessarily alone. This is not my alone time. I can be with friends or family.
Yeah.
But just to be out there, getting some fresh air in, getting the stress out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Already a better person. And another one is sit down with a good friend over a cup of coffee. And I have learned not to feel guilty if I'm having a coffee in the middle of my working day. I need that coffee now with a friend.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's okay.
Absolutely.
It sounds counterproductive, but it's not.
Yep.
It's not laziness. It's not counterproductive. When I go and have a coffee with a friend now, I come back to my workflow much more energetic and creative, and just, I feel good with myself.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
And that's so important to have that like self-care where we know like things that we can do to rejuvenate us and to get us back on a positive path. Because I know usually I'm okay, I have this, I got to go, and I don't take any breaks. And I realize that it gets me so much worn down so much quickly and so much more stress because of that. But if I take a 20-minute break and I just go throw a toy in the backyard with the dogs, or um, just sit in silence for me, or whatever it may be. I like being outside as well. So just going walking around the yard, listen to birds, like I come back, like you said, just so much more ready and focused. And I think it plays true. And I know there's, and the name escapes me, but there's a method where you work for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break, whatever that break is for you,
Mhm.
to kind of get your mind rested for that short time, and then you do it again and the process continues. And I think it could be so beneficial to a lot of people to be able to find those methods that really get them back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. But here you can notice again something really interesting is
Uh-huh.
that you have explored for yourself what is working for you.
Hmm.
So this would be the first thing, just explore for yourself, do yourself
Absolutely.
inquiry and go and check what's working for you best, what practice can nourish you. And this is a wonderful first step,
Yeah,
something to begin with. Just explore what would you like to do that will help you with
absolutely.
the flow. Yeah.
What would you, so if someone came to you and said, hey, I'm feeling burned out, I'm feeling very
Mm.
stressed, but I have no idea what to do to rejuvenate or to relax or to feel better, to relieve that stress, where should I start, Davida? What should I kind of try first, maybe?
So someone is already burnt out.
They feel like they're
Like, oh,
burned out or
yeah,
stressed. They're really stressed, but they have no idea what their relaxation thing is.
yeah. Well, I must say that if a person comes in this situation, I already share admiration because it's not easy to talk about it.
For sure.
And I have talked with so many people that while they got burnt out, they just laid in bed for 2 months, not
Mm,
exaggerating now, true story. And so if someone comes and openly say, hey, this is how I feel right now, good for you that you already want to talk about it and get the support and the help. And I would say first, have a talk with someone who understands you, whom you trust,
yeah.
right? Someone who will not judge you, someone who can share empathy. So what is empathy? This is not about giving you an advice.
Yeah.
This is about giving you the space to express yourself. We are
For
not
sure.
necessarily, yeah, we don't always need someone to tell us what to do when we need empathy. We just need to be heard sometimes, maybe more than it. But the first thing is to connect with someone you trust and feel comfortable with. And then I usually ask the people I mentor, especially in these situations,
Hmm.
what is your happy place? What is that place that you feel like the best version of yourself?
Mm,
If you can't come up with it now, think of the last time that you felt comfortable in your own skin. So why am I asking this question?
yeah.
Because there are different definitions for burnout. There's the medical definition, there are signs for that. These are good, but many people have shared with me that when they got burned out, what they have felt is that they are no longer recognize themselves.
Hmm.
They could be angry or aggressive or annoyed or depressed or tired, exhausted.
Yeah.
They no longer recognize themselves. So I asked that person, when was the last time you felt good with yourself in
Hmm.
your comfortable and happy place? And now let's create this situation. And if you can't create the same situation,
Yeah.
let's find something that is similar enough. Like you can't go back to Hawaii, for
I
example,
wish.
right?
Yeah.
This is your happy place.
Yeah.
Okay, let's find something, the ingredient there that
Yeah.
made you happy, and bring it into your daily life. right? Because sometimes people mistake and think, okay, I'm burnt out. I just go to a vacation now, right? I'll take a retreat. Everything will be fine. Not exactly.
Right.
Preventing burnout is about consistency. So the way to prevent it is to maintain well-being on a daily basis
Mm.
in work and life. So find these ingredients that make you feel good and bring them into your routines. That will make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just kind of what reiterating what you've already said is, yeah, just finding that thing that works for you and just adding it into your life is huge. But you mentioned a little bit ago just that there's different definitions of burnout, whether it be medical or whatnot. But with your research, have you found that there's different stages or levels of burnout?
Well, I would say that the stages go a little bit before the burnout. So
Okay.
you have the basic stress, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
You know, some research shows that some stress, to some extent, is a good thing
Yep.
because it could motivate you. It can create this adrenaline that drives you forward. This is good. However, when stress is not managed well,
Mm-hmm.
when you cannot balance that and you cannot use it for motivation, then you are stressed out. And that's already a bit problematic because you can't react well to the situation, you can't handle that well. And the next stage will be some sort of being overwhelmed with either data and information and tasks, or maybe the challenges that you're now facing. So when you're overwhelmed, again, if you're not managing that well and create this balance,
Mm.
whichever balance that may be, then you go to the next stage, which is around anxiety and fear. And some people reported they are panicking.
Hmm.
And then the next stage is the burnout itself. So what is the burnout? It is when you hit the wall and you can no longer continue. So within the burnout, people have different feelings and different reactions. Like I mentioned, some could just stay in bed because they're
Mm-hmm.
exhausted. Some
Right.
need to be alone, or maybe they're afraid to be alone, so they need to be surrounded with people all the time. But it's always very similar in the sense that you just feel, like I said, you are no longer recognizing yourself, you're burnout, you don't want to continue anymore with
Hmm.
what you have been doing before.
Right.
And the definition by the World Health Organization, by
Mm-hmm.
the way, the definition is that when you are burnt out, they define it in the context of the workplace.
Hmm.
So it's an occupational phenomenon. It's not depression.
Yeah.
It's related to the work that you do. It could be, by the way, a voluntary mission, but it's still
Yeah.
a job that you take, a work
Right.
that you do. And so when you're burnt out, you feel disconnected from the cause of work. You feel cynical. You
Mm-hmm.
feel disengaged, right? You might be negative to your boss or coworkers. So this is how it feels. This is the signs that we should be aware of.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned, like, with that, listening to people who are burnt out, we have the empathy. We don't have to have an answer. Is there other things that we might be able to do to help those who are suffering with burnout
I
besides
love
just
that.
listening?
Yeah, I love that question. I appreciate that
Yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's really, really important to take care of ourselves, but also to try and take care of others and
Mm-hmm.
just listen to
Yeah.
what's going on around us, whether we are the manager or the leader, or this is a friend or a coworker. So thank you for that question.
Yeah.
And I would say listen around, be aware of the signs, see what's going on with your friends and family and colleagues and whoever in your nets. And the support that you can hand is basically asking them, what do you need? What can I do for you? But what do you need? And what do you feel? And these are two things, the needs and the feels,
Mm.
that basically connect all humans.
Yeah.
This is going to be to the field of nonviolent communication
Right.
that I practice personally and professionally, and I find very, very helpful in that context.
Uh-huh.
What connects all human beings are needs and feelings. And if we can ask someone and help them to express what do they need and what do they feel, it's already halfway to help them feel supported and held.
Hmm.
And from that, they will say exactly what they need, and then we can see if we can support them or we need to refer them to someone else, maybe professional help.
Yeah.
Maybe we can encourage them to go and have a conversation with their boss. You know, I was sitting with a friend last week.
Uh-huh.
A friend, really nothing to do with work, but naturally, the topic of burnout came up. And yeah, you know, that's my life in the
That's right.
recent few months.
Right.
And she told me about her work situation, and she feels that she's giving so much, so many hours and energy and effort. She's doing a lot of things, taking a lot of responsibility, but she doesn't, that's how she feels, that she doesn't get paid enough
Hmm.
and she's not valued
Mm.
enough for her efforts. And so I listened to her. I asked
Right.
her, how do you feel? What's going on? And then she said two things. I already feel better. It doesn't mean that I know what to do now, but thanks for listening.
That's awesome.
So I asked her, so you are asking me for advice what to do now. I asked her, do you want my advice? And she said, well, if you can think of something I can do, please share it with me. And I told her, well, sounds like you have a lot to say to your managers.
Mm.
Do you feel like you can
Yeah.
do that? Like, go to your manager and tell them how you feel. And she said, I don't feel comfortable enough to do that.
Mm.
But obviously, after articulating what I feel, obviously, if I will continue like that, I will burn out. Now I'm frustrated. Probably in a month time from now, I'll be burned out. So I might do that. I might go and tell them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Just kind of that little nudge she might have needed. It wasn't a whole big spiel you gave her, but just enough motivation and encouragement by
I think she came,
asking.
yeah. I think she came to the solution by herself or almost by herself. You know,
That's
sometimes
almost the best. Yeah.
when you voice out what's going on there, you kind of have this realization.
Yeah.
But we all want to be heard
Right.
in one way or another.
Yeah. It's almost like we're supposed to be the mirror for someone else. We kind of just let them kind of talk, maybe bounce, reflect some stuff back to them, and then eventually they're like, "Oh, yeah, so this is what," and they kind of, like you said, answer their own question. And I think that's sometimes better than giving the advice, letting someone figure it out on their own. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And I think this topic of burnout is just becoming more prevalent. I mean, we hear more and more about work-life balance and the stress and dealing with the stress, and like you said, meditation being a bigger topic nowadays. But I'm thankful that you were able to get on our show today and give us so much good information and knowledge. Um, we really appreciate it. And before you go, though, I'd like to get your
My
input
pleasure.
on the traits of pencil leadership. So 5 traits of pencil leadership. The first one, like we talked about, was being humble and knowing
Yeah.
when or who to get a coach and mentor. So is there anyone in your life who has mentored or coached you to help you get to where you are today?
So many people
That's awesome.
that
Yeah.
I'm grateful for. Yeah. I mean,
Any in
you want
particular?
it,
Yeah, you have
yeah,
like
in
one,
particular,
maybe the one that
no,
really sticks out.
the one that sticks out is actually someone from my youth. This is the
Okay.
first example
Yeah.
that came to mind, is that when I was a scouts leader at the age of 17, we got this big challenge to me and my friend to lead this, you know, bunch of kids without an adult. I don't know, it was a very difficult year. But one of my instructors from the previous year, we kept in touch.
Uh-huh.
She was older than me, like 6 years older than me.
Okay.
And she saw me. She
Hmm.
noticed what's going on. So she offered, why won't we have these weekly meetings that you will share what's going on, and I'll just, listen. Again, this is about listening. I said,
Yep.
sure. Like someone is offering me this help, I'll do that. So we made it into this habit, like this ritual of
Yeah.
weekly meetings over, I don't know, like coffee or on the phone when you couldn't do that. And I love that she always listened to me in such a trustful environment that I could tell her everything, like my
Hmm.
mistakes, my failures, everything. And she was, on one hand, accepting everything without judgment, but on the other hand, she helped me to face those mistakes. So she didn't ignore them. She didn't like pet me and said, "Oh, you're all good." No, it's not about that.
Right.
She helped me to see myself as I am and grow from there. So she was my first
That's
mentor, and I'm
awesome.
so appreciative for that, even if it was many, many
No,
years
absolutely.
ago.
And that's so awesome that at such a young age you had one and recall, and that's the one that
Yes,
pops in your head. And I think even, yeah, people now, younger generations can look at that and take that and be like, okay, I can be mentored. It's okay. I can learn. And yeah, the positive impact that it could have is huge.
absolutely.
So the second part of pencil leadership is that pencils are sharpened to be more efficient. So has there ever been a time that you've been through that's been maybe painful or really tough, but looking back, um, made you who you are today?
Yeah, get many examples. I spent a year in Sweden
Okay.
in international program for
Mm.
sustainability. I loved it, and it was a life-changing year, but it also very, very challenging for me, very difficult. I was nurturing a young child, my
Oh,
daughter,
uh-huh.
and a 6 month baby. And I was trying to write a thesis under 1 year,
Oh
and
man.
I wasn't confident enough about my English and writing an academic thesis in English. And so that was very challenging,
I bet.
sometimes painful.
Yeah.
My son was teething while I
Oh
was
no.
trying to meet the deadline. But at the end, I realized and I did it.
Yeah.
So at the end, I stepped out of this year so grateful for what had happened there, and realized that when I'm out of my comfort zone, great things could happen. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, just looking at mothers in general, all the work and stuff they have to go through, and then everything on top of it you did, that's a huge, painful, probably process, but so beneficial.
It was
Oh, that's awesome.
rewarding for sure.
Wow.
Rewarding.
That's so awesome. So the third thing about pencil leadership is that they have erasers, obviously, to um, erase mistakes and to fix mistakes. So, and you can answer this how you want. Have you ever made a mistake that you recall that you were really taught a valuable lesson from?
Yeah, for sure. There's one coming to my mind now
Uh-huh.
that I served in the army. It's
Okay.
obligatory in Israel, and I was an officer at some
Wow.
point. And I just started my role, my position. I had, I think it was 7 soldiers to begin with, and one of them went to this. I don't know. She was sent to some kind of mission, and it was difficult on her. And I didn't contact her all day.
Mm.
I was busy with achieving other big goals. I thought it's more important to pursue my missions.
Uh-huh.
And when she came back, she burst into tears, crying. It was so difficult for me. You did not reach out even once. Where have you been? And I said, well, I was doing my own work. But obviously, that was a mistake, because I realized what she really needed is her boss, which was
Mm.
me,
Yeah.
to take care of her, to help her manage her stuff, even if it meant that I would have to delay my
Mm.
things. And that was a big lesson for me, that when you're in charge of people, you really need to be in charge also for their well-being and their health, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, emotional well-being
Yeah.
even.
Wow. Yeah. And sometimes when it's like real, like a person, and you can see the pain or the emotions that it's caused, that almost makes it even 10 times worse, just because you can almost sense and feel their
Yeah,
emotions. Oh,
yeah,
uh, well, thank you for sharing that. The fourth one, with pencil leadership is obviously a pencil as it gets used can get scratched or nicked. Um, but the lead inside is the important part that leaves the mark. So what do you try to nurture within you that will protrude into your life and leave or make a positive mark? So whether that be like integrity or your time management or fairness, for example, what kind of do you want to ooze out of you that people see?
wow. I would say my real voice, my authenticity.
Mm.
To be really honest now, I've been trying for too long to please other people.
Right.
And yeah, it's almost one of my biggest lessons since starting to write this book, that I want to be true to my own voice.
Yep.
And it's a big word, authenticity. But if you break it down, it's about being true to who you are and courageous enough to stand out there, speak up for what you care for, even if you know that you're going to step on some toes, but it's important to you to express those
Yeah.
values and your stand and whatever comes with it. So authenticity,
That's
that would be the
awesome.
one.
Yeah. And I think so many people can learn from that as well, because we are all different. And if we just try to fit into cookie cutter shapes, then we're not giving our best to the world and to others. And yeah, so that's awesome. That's a really a neat one, authenticity. So the last one of pencil leadership is obviously a pencil is made to leave a mark on whatever surface it's writing on. So after everything is said and done here on earth for you, what would you want your mark to have been on the world?
That would be to make a positive impact
Mm-hmm.
while thriving and be happy while doing that. So do meaningful stuff and be happy about it.
That's awesome. That's a great one. Simple, but like to the point, but so much weight behind that. I think more people who could do things in a positive way, a happy way, I think a lot of things could change in the world. But I think that's very admirable, Mark. And I think you're already doing a great job with what you're doing with your
Thank
nonviolent
you.
coaching and your work on burnout. So again, Davida, thank you so much just for being on the show today and bringing such great value to our audience.
Thank you, Chris, for inviting me. True pleasure to have this conversation with you.